everyone, I'm Sam.
And I'm Kaitlyn.
And this is Team Get Ovary It.
We're an all-female team participating in the greatest motoring adventure on the planet,
the Mongol Rally.
We'll be driving 10,000 miles across mountains, deserts, and unknown terrain.
And along the way, we hope to spread our feminist and environmental ideals.
Join us here as we share our stories, thoughts, and interviews as we get ready for the Mongol Rally 2021. Hello.
Hey, welcome back.
Hey.
So today we are joined by some kindred spirits, Josh and Sarah, aka the Veggie Vagabonds.
Yeah, so Josh and Sarah live in the UK and enjoy hiking, cycling, and climbing, like us, and they're also vegan.
So we met through Twitter, and we adore their content and message, and so absolutely had to ask them to come on to the podcast with us.
Yeah, so Josh and Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, great to be on here. So I guess we're currently in the UK. We're I guess like first and foremost we're like big outdoor lovers.
Mm-hmm.
And then but we've got quite like an environmentalist streak in us. So we try and like plan adventures and try and like make our trips as kind of sustainable and eco-friendly as possible. Yeah. And I guess we're also vegan. That's, I guess,
a big thing.
I don't think it feels so big to us, but it seems to be kind of like
I guess because we've been vegan for quite a while now, it just seems quite sort of usual sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and then at the start of the virus, we came back to the UK, so we're just back here waiting until we can get back on the road again.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like the general consensus. I know like a lot of our plans were kind of thrown into a loop. Like Sam and I were preparing to go. Well, the reason why we started the podcast and the reason why we started this group originally was to kind of like raise awareness and do fundraising for our Mongol Rally attempt. So the original plan was to buy a car in Europe. It's part of like this big thing, and to drive all the way to Mongolia. Yeah, and so we were really excited to start doing that. It was supposed to start in July, but it got canceled this year for like the first time since its inception in 2004. So again, like us two, we're just kind of waiting.
It was I guess there's a lot to prepare for it.
Yeah, they canceled it early enough that we didn't do a whole lot of prep, but I think we started about a year out. And we started with Instagram and Twitter. We have a website. We started doing the podcast. I think it was July or August we started doing the podcast. And then kind of after we knew it was already canceled, but it's just kind of something to do while we were like tiding over. And it's a good creative outlet too, I think, especially for this year. And then, but I went as far. I got my Russian visa actually because we were going to go through Russia too, and but it just kind of is sitting in my passport totally useless because I couldn't go to Russia in the end.
Is this so you can get there in any means, right? Or like you choose any route, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Had you like plotted out a route, or were you just going to kind of see how things went along the road?
I think we had like a general idea of a route, but it really was, we were just going to wing it.
Yeah.
We did like so little preparation in the grand scheme of things, which I think is sort of like the nature of the event. But
yeah, I feel like the more you plan, the more that just won't go to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was looking at your guys' website, and you have such beautiful plans for like adventuring and like cycling tours and stuff. And I was like, wow, these guys are so organized.
Oh, really?
Maybe we sell it off like that.
Yeah.
Definitely not the case on the ground.
I think we have like sort of vague plans. We might sort of be like, we're here and we want to perhaps cycle to here, but how we get there, how long it will take, sort of what we do in between, that's all sort of very improvised.
Yeah, I guess we kind of we knew the countries.
Yeah.
The next country we'd want to go to, and then we
plan from there.
We planned from there, and it would always it definitely didn't go to plan. So when we started cycling towards India, we had planned, guesstimated it would take us from UK to India about 18 months maybe.
Okay, wow.
And then so we came back to the UK at the start of the virus, and we'd been on the road for 13 months.
And spent all of it in France.
And we'd not got past France.
So yeah.
We get easily distracted.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, I mean, like that's kind of the spirit of adventure, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel. Yeah, because you never know what's gonna happen, and I think and like Sam and I, we've traveled a little bit before together. Like we went to the sort of shorter trips, like just during like a summer holiday kind of thing. And so we've been to Thailand together, and then I went to visit her in Bali last year, and we've traveled like all around Korea together. And we feel like sometimes if you over plan something, if you plan something too much, you might miss out on kind of golden opportunities.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree.
so usually when we travel together, we just don't plan much.
We don't plan anything. Let's be real.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Okay,
But then
so
you can sort of take any opportunities that come your way if there's no plan, because you're not
Yeah.
thinking, oh, I have to get there to do this.
And I think especially if you're like, depending on how you travel, if you're doing kind of real grassrootsy, like speaking with locals, kind of off the beaten track kind of thing, there's so many opportunities and like kind of just interactions that come your way. So I think if you're constantly like, oh well, we actually need to be here by so and so, or then it I don't know, I think it cancels out so many of like the charms and like beauty of like being on the road.
Oh, absolutely, definitely. I think we travel a lot in the same way. That's good. So we'll get to the real questions, but this wonderful conversation. So for the first question, number one is, when did you first start getting interested in the outdoors and nature?
So I guess it was different but well, for me, I guess from quite a young age, my dad would take me and my sister camping, much to my disdain at the time, because all my friends were sort of going on these cool holidays and we'd be going camping like 100 miles down the road, and I thought it was the lamest thing ever. But as I got older, I started to enjoy it a lot more. And then I think we kind of got into it together. That's when we took a bit more of like a deeper dive into it. Like you started getting interested in when you were traveling on your own.
Yeah, so I definitely didn't have I didn't do any outdoorsy stuff with my family at all. Like I don't think we did any, like we went on holidays and stuff, but they weren't like active, or there might have been sports, like we did sports, but not like outdoorsy stuff. And then when I started traveling from like 16 onwards, that's when I started like hiking and going to national parks, and then that was kind of like the route into it. But then I guess it's when we both met, where we kind of
decided to go,
like flung ourselves in in the deep end.
Blossomed from there really. We've just enjoyed it more and more, and it's sort of explored further and further.
And I think kind of over the years we've gradually kind of, so like we've lived in cities, like so we spent a year living in Hanoi, we spent like years living in Sheffield, we've like lived in big busy places, and I think we're just like, as the years go on, we've realized that
it's not for us.
We don't really want to be in cities anymore. We definitely prefer kind of having stuff on your doorstep and just being surrounded by trees and hills and mountains.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So then what are, I guess, we talked about it a little bit already, but what are the outdoor activities that you guys do most, and how did you get into them?
I'd say maybe hiking.
Yeah.
I think because it's most accessible, I would say.
It's definitely changed over this year though. Yeah,
or before climbing.
Well, I guess like at the moment we're just like doing loads of running and trail running.
Oh yeah.
Because and before that we've always like, I think we've done like quite a lot of running, but just as like, you go for a jog around the block. And I think the last 6 months particularly, it's been like actually having that as a proper thing, like kind of running into the hills and kind of spending like an afternoon trail running. We've never done that before, but it's like the only thing which you can really do easily at the moment with the lockdown.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that which has spurred it along.
It allows you to get sort of like good nature fix sort of thing, get very sweaty, explore
in a short space of time.
Yeah. And Josh, for his 30th birthday on the 30th of January, ran 30 miles.
Yeah, so
with
it's like
no preparation at all.
My birthday challenge.
Very impressive.
Yeah, sort of like 3 weeks before his birthday, having sort of never ran further than a half marathon. You're like, I think I'm gonna run 30 miles. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I did it, but it wasn't sensible to do it, because I definitely have kind of got like little niggly niggling injuries. Not bad, but like I definitely should have had like at least a few more weeks preparation. But yeah, I'm glad I did it. It was fun.
But in terms of what we do, I think we do hiking the most, I would say, as like an activity. Obviously, we cycle toured, and the plan was to go all the way to India, so that we cycle a lot. But I think we tend to hike more frequently. I think just because it's quite easy, quite accessible.
Yeah,
you can do it whatever the weather.
And then like camp as much as you can, and then climb. And then climbing is another one where it's very much like it kind of really goes in kind of like ups and downs. So I think we
quite weather dependent.
So like here in Skipton, there's no climbing gym, and the weather's very bad. So
rains a lot.
Yeah, so it's kind of through the summer, like we'll climb as much as we can. But then the weather now is just so unpredictable, it makes it really hard to kind of get into like a good stint of it. And I definitely think out of all the like outdoor pursuits, climbing is the one where like you need to be kind of keeping on like a consistent game of it, rather than kind of, we could go for a hike having not hiked in years and it would be fine.
Yeah.
But I think if I then try and I'm hanging 15 feet off a wall, having not climbed in a few months, and it's not so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally understand. It's really funny because like we literally do the same activities. So like we started hiking together. Actually, Sam kind of I did a little bit in Canada, but Sam kind of got me into it more like when we moved to Korea, because Korea is like 70% mountains. It's a hiker's paradise. Yeah. And like nothing's too well. There's a lot of like good mountains for beginners or like somebody who just wants kind of an easy hike, and they have like those that increase in difficulty kind of as you go on. But like, yeah, after I started hiking, then we started climbing together. And I totally understand what you mean about like, yeah, climbing, you have to kind of keep at it. Like like Sam left Korea about like 2 years ago, and since then I haven't really done that much climbing. But this year I was like, oh, I should join a gym. And anyway, so I joined a gym that's near my house, and like the first couple of times I went out was agony. I couldn't my muscles were so sore.
Yeah.
And it's all muscles. Like you didn't even realize there was like a big muscle there, and you're like, I don't know how I'm aching here, but it's like it really hurts here.
And like yeah, my forearms were stiff for days, like after my first time back out, and like and I had lost all the like calluses on my hands as well. So like I'm trying to build up my calluses again, and and then like cycling as well. Like we did a cycling tour around a pretty famous spot to do it in Korea, like Jeju Island. Beautiful. Yeah, it was absolutely.
I've seen a lot of. It's definitely one of those places where like I didn't realize it had like a lot of outdoor potential, and then in the last few years I've seen like so many incredible things there, and especially with climbing, because they seem to have like a really big climbing culture there. Like a lot of the top climbers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Korean.
Yeah, the climbing community in Korea it's pretty big, I'd say, and they have some pretty like well-renowned like world-ranked climbers that climb in like a lot of like the IFSC or
I think
those competitions.
Yeah, I think they're in Japan as well. They seem to have a different mentality with training, where it's just kind of they just get so good. And I think also from like I know with climbing particularly, people start young, but there it really does seem to be like as soon as they're able to walk, or even less than that. Do you know what I mean? They kind of hang them on a wall.
Yeah, well, I've seen, even at my gym, I've seen like some kids there. There was a lovely family there a couple weekends ago, and with their 2 young kids, and I think their oldest son might have been like 8 years old or something, and he was like just scaling the walls. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
What inspired the Mongol Rally?
That was Sam.
So one of our friends, Taylor, her brother actually did it in 2019, and he came to visit her when the 3 of us were teaching at the same school in Korea. And so I heard him over dinner one night talk about it, and he was in like the preparation phase, but he was just sort of describing it and like what it was, like basically like all of the lack of preparation you do for it. And I was like, wow, this sounds awesome. And then at one of our, I guess, like drinking nights in one of our apartments, I like brought it up to a group of people, and I was like, I want to do the Mongol Rally. Who wants to do it with me? And then Kaitlyn was one of the people that was like, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. And
I
that's
think there's like I can't remember what the quote is, but kind of saying how like the best adventures start around a pub table, where you just kind of like
it's
kind of these
true.
really extravagant plans, which like that'll never happen, and like, well, we could actually make it happen. It's,
Fueled by
Yeah,
alcohol.
and it's true. I think it's like it's a very like you have to have like an adventure mentality or something. Like I feel like I know a lot of people back home, like a lot of cousins or family or friends or whatever, and sometimes when I'm talking to them, they're just like, "Wow, like I can't believe you're doing that. It must have been difficult, or it must have been like, I don't know, so scary or something to like, uproot your life and move across the world, or oh, you traveled to Taiwan by yourself. Like it must have been really difficult." And I'm like, "No." Like
yeah.
it's, you just like whenever you get into your mind that you're like, I'm going to do something, there's always a way to do it.
But it's crazy how like different people see life in such different ways. I think it's the same with my family. Like they kind of see what we do as crazy, but then like to us, it seems crazy just kind of staying in one place all of your life. It just that seems like more of the scary thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, and I think kind of going back to what you guys were saying before, like, even coming to it a little bit more later, like, I think I've always loved the idea of travel, but I didn't really start traveling until I was much older. And I think too, it just kind of, it goes hand in hand with like a sense of, it could be like confidence or a sense of like everything is going to be okay. Because I think like a lot of things, like a lot of what people are worried about is, problems arising or things going wrong or getting stuck in a place. But, once you kind of get out there and travel, you realize that like, oh, there's a lot of resources. And like, if I do get stuck here, I could always just visit the embassy and like, it's not really, it doesn't have to be like a super dire situation when those kinds of things happen.
Yeah, I think it also helps you realize that like as human beings, we're very like resourceful anyway.
Yeah.
And like I think
And adaptable.
you're like if you're living in a city, or not necessarily just a city, but like you don't really get a chance for that to come out. But when you're somewhere where like
You're forced to be uncomfortable.
yeah, then it kind of like you're just like, oh wow, I can actually do these things without thinking about it. Yeah, I think in some ways it's quite good to throw yourself into the deep end and then you just kind of like sink or well, I guess sinking is not so great, but hopefully you swim.
Yeah, I think as long as it's sort of a measured risk,
Yeah.
I think it might. I think it can surprise people sort of how adaptable they can be.
So, and you guys said, so it's really amazing that you're both vegan, that you've been vegan for so long. And I was reading on your website, Josh, you wrote on your site that you've never eaten meat, and I would love to hear the story behind that.
Yeah, so my parents are kind of like hippie 60s people, so they just brought me up a vegetarian. So it was just kind of like a.
They were both veggies from the age of 16, so they just.
Yeah, so when they met, my mum was kind of like to my dad was like, you're not allowed to eat meat anymore. So then from like 16 or 17 they didn't eat any meat. And then it was just like but I think kind of growing up like that, it doesn't seem like a thing. It's kind of like, if anything, it was like when I went to school and I saw people eating meat, that was when it was kind of like, that was like the first realization of kind of like, I'm the only vegetarian person probably in this school, or like the next few schools. So it was never like I never had like a learning curve or changes, or it was all just quite fortunate in that it came naturally to me.
Okay, and for Sarah too, I'd love to hear like when you went vegan and what was your motivation for doing that?
I went vegetarian when I was a teenager, and my dad would sort of sneakily try and feed me meat in my cheese toasties, which was really naughty.
Yeah.
Then I started eating meat again, sort of in my teenagers, and then when me and Josh met, we were both actually veggie at the time, and then we both decided to go vegan together.
But it didn't happen. It wasn't like immediate. It sort
of happened gradually. I think just as we sort of started to kind of educate ourselves a bit more on like the environment, and we watched a few documentaries and just read a few more things, and we slowly got towards this idea of this just seems like a natural step onwards from vegetarianism to kind of. So we kind of did it slowly. It wasn't sort of like one day we suddenly
like, we're never going to eat any dairy again.
Yeah.
And also because we're massive foodies. You know what I mean? Like you get loads of these vegans where like, I couldn't even look at meat, or I couldn't even look at fish or cheese, and it's like for us it's like that looks really tasty, and like I love cheese and I love dairy. Like it's not like we didn't like it. We used to have, when we lived in Sheffield, we had a deli at the end of our road, like a cheese deli, and any time we'd walk in, you'd see their eyes light up because they know that we just like would be buying kind of like bags and bags of cheese. So it's definitely like a it's not like we don't like the food. It's just kind of just realised that it was kind of seemed like the
natural thing to do.
Yeah, I'm vegetarian right now, and I'm actually trying to like transition to being vegan, and like the hardest part for me is the cheese. That's like what I'm like on day 3 of no cheese. But when they say that like cheese is a drug, it's true. It's so good, and it just gets you hooked.
So you're not in Korea,
I'm in California now.
Okay, so you can get you've got lots of cheese around you.
Yeah, see, so the thing was, I had actually transitioned to being vegan when I was living in Bali last year. And I came home and I was like, I'm going to stay vegan. It's great. Like, I don't even crave cheese anymore. And then I came home to California where cheese is literally everywhere. And I was like, oh, well, just like one like piece of cheese, like how bad is that? And then before I knew it, I was like eating cheese, like absurd amounts of cheese with every meal. And I was like, okay. Like, this needs to stop. I have no willpower. I fully admit it. Like, I do much better being a vegan when there's just, like, no temptation around me. But it's really hard when I, like, open the fridge and just see a bag of cheese there.
Yeah. It was actually, it was hard when we, at points when we've come back to the UK. So my parents, so they're all veggies, but, like, but interestingly, it would be much easier to turn, like, some other, like, meat eaters vegan than it would be to convince them to go vegan. They're really they've got this bizarre mentality of like, obviously they're animal lovers, but there's no way they go vegan.
Yeah.
And they also waste loads of food. And I'm real like, I hate food being wasted. Like I really don't like it. And all this kind of food in the fridge where it's like kind of seeing
like cheesy pizzas.
It's going to go off, and it's just like, such like a conscious crisis. So that was frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, okay, speaking about food, because part of your website, I think like half of the website is dedicated to food. And so we were sort of curious about like snacks in regards to like these outdoor activities, because Kaitlyn and I have been on some pretty long hikes and camping trips and even long bike rides together. And we're always looking for, I guess, low waste, eco-friendly snacks. And so we were wondering if you could share some tips on how you guys try to be eco-friendly when you are snacking or eating on your outdoor activities.
So we make a lot of things, which I think really helps. I really enjoy cooking, so I see it's quite an enjoyable thing. Like from work, it's kind of like a bit of a relaxing thing to do. So I'll often make like big batches of kind of like energy balls or sort of flapjacks, sort of banana bread, things like this, and then we'll just have like a bunch of it in the fridge that we can just sort of take with us whenever we need it. Stuff like that has quite a long life, so it doesn't need to be eaten quite quickly. And then whenever we're going out, we just sort of fill up a bag with snacks.
Yeah, loads of different like energy balls, flapjacks.
Yeah, like
I guess you're like just doing fruit leathers.
Yeah, we just brought a dehydrator, so we're sort of making lots of dehydrated recipes for backpacking in the summer. So today I've been making some fruit leathers, kind of like dried fruit things, and then doing our own sort of dehydrated like chilies and like spaghetti bolognese, curries, these sort of things, in order just to cut down on the waste.
Because I think that's like the to be able to like buy ready products as soon as you're buying it from outside, it's like immediately that adds on such a huge like carbon footprint. Well, generally, so like if you can make stuff yourself and then you can get like the ingredients in bulk, you can opt for like more like locally sourced ingredients. I think that's like the easiest way, and then you can like you have a lot less waste as well. Like so there'll be barely any waste with all
it.
It
is more effort though, like making it all yourself, it is more effort. We're also quite fortunate as well in Skipton. We have like a zero waste shop where you can go and sort of get dried fruits and like herbs and sort of pulses, grains, and sort of fill up jars. So it really is sort of
which is
very,
actually,
very low waste.
And it's really lucky because Skipton's like a tiny town. There's like 15,000 people here, and there's very little stuff like that. So we're quite fortunate to have that, I guess. And then what about like sustainability of it? I think just kind of like trying to go local is such a big thing, and it's definitely a hard thing, and it's maybe not and it's quite often not cheaper as well, which sucks. But
Well, I think it depends where you are in the world.
yeah, I guess you can get loads of seasonal stuff, but it's like, I think when you think about like the carbon footprint of, or like the food miles involved with kind of like importing all this stuff from overseas, and then that's when it becomes like and I guess we kind of get used to this kind of real fortunate thing of just having all year round all the fruit we could want and all the vegetables we can want.
In the UK especially, sort of pineapples are there year round, bananas year round.
But if you can kind of like get yourself more appreciative of local seasonal foods, which is still awesome, I think you just
less so in the UK in winter, but yeah. A good tip is to sort of see if it's grown in that country. So if stuff's sort of grown in England, that usually means that it's seasonal at the time that it's being sold sort of in supermarkets. Winter in England isn't the best for.
No, what can we get?
You can get like
Potatoes. Yeah, not so good.
I guess in California and Korea you must have a lot more variety sort of year round in terms of produce. No?
Well, I think Sam's probably the winner in this conversation. But Korea. Korea, like, I mean, the winter does, I get pretty cold, but it's not too long. But luckily, like, there's a huge difference between like temperature and climate between like the northern part of the country and the southern part of the country. Because like the southern part, like Jeju Island and even like Busan area, is like almost kind of tropical, sort of. Like they have palm trees and stuff down there. So they, especially in wintertime, especially Jeju Island is known for like is it called like kamgyul, but it's basically a like clementine, a tangerine kind of thing. So I've been eating those like all winter, and they've been really cheap and like really fresh and really delicious. And then they also, like, right now halabong oranges are in season 2. So it's a kind of orange, but it's like really sweet. So I've been like snacking on those occasionally. So that's really good. But then, like, other things too, a lot of stuff is produced locally, because Korea, I mean, obviously they do a lot of imports too, but I think they're a little more like nationalistic, so they push their domestic products more so than like their imported products. So we did, but this summer was really awful, and we had a lot of rain, and a lot of like crops suffered just because it was too wet, and like not enough sun because it was always cloudy. So the quality and the price of the produce just like skyrocketed. Like there were no tomatoes for a while at the shops, and when you could find tomatoes, it was like $18 for like 5 tomatoes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So most of the stuff you eat, are you able to eat like just local stuff, or like can you get hold of lots of imported stuff, or like how do you eat over there?
I mean the imported stuff kind of is expensive, especially imported fruits. So I try to eat I just try to get like local as much as possible. I do enjoy cooking, but I'm very lazy, and I'm a creature of habit. So whenever I eat, I kind of just eat the same things over and over again, which also reduce waste though, because I know exactly like how much of like whatever I need to make my meals. But so what I usually do is I get eggs, which are like local. And recently, I don't know what happened, but the egg prices jumped too. But like, yeah, so I usually get like eggs, and I get like chilies, and they're really big on chilies here. They use it in a lot of their pastes, like chili paste and chili flavorings. Like everything is kind of chili spices. So I get chilies, and I make chili, usually chili with the chili. And I make like some kind of stews with like locally grown cabbage, and I usually buy, because they're not really big on like white potatoes here. They usually use like goguma, which is a kind of sweet potato. So I usually like buy a lot of like those kinds of things, like local sweet potatoes. So yeah. They have these wonderful markets here. They have traditional markets where you can buy like fresh farm kind of local produce. Unfortunately, none of them are close to my house. So I usually end up like buying stuff from the supermarkets, but they usually have kind of like a local greens section, which I usually pick from. Yeah, it's pretty good actually. It's not too bad. I'm trying to get away from, I do like avocados and stuff, but I'm trying to get away from them because the avocados are of course like imported. They're kind of expensive here, and then also like I watched a documentary recently about avocado farming, and it's just like so wasteful. So
yeah, we went one as well actually not that long ago, and it was like, oh my word.
It's just it's so tasty as well. So it's like kind of have it as this kind of like naughty treat every month or so, or like if we see them reduced, like like in their kind of like not damaged, but kind of they're going off basically, then we like, oh, we're doing a service here. we'll buy them.
Nice. But yeah, I think Sam, you have like a smorgasbord over there.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty lucky in terms of
Smug
the
smile.
amount of fruit. And then also, I mean, like California has year-round sun basically, so we actually grow a lot in our backyard. So we have, well, we tried an herb garden a little bit unsuccessfully. We only have dill left. But we have like basil, tomatoes, oranges, and chilies that we all grow. And because the weather's just so good year round, like a lot of the, I guess, like plants that typically in other climates might only produce crops once a year sort of just like keep coming. So it's nice. I mean, yeah, I think I'm, I guess, the best off in terms of fruit accessibility in this group.
So, Josh, I understand that you're the resident expert on vegan gear, and I think like most adventurers, I'm always on the hunt for a good backpack. So, just could you tell me which backpacks would you recommend for like a day hike? And then also, like, could you recommend one backpack for a longer adventure as well?
Yeah, so I think so I've recently just started using so I don't know if they'll be like available between kind of Korea and California, but do you have Jack Wolfskin over with you guys?
If I don't, I'm sure I could order it.
So I've been using like recently. This is like a 30-liter day pack, but it's called like a Kingston, day pack, which I really like. Is kind of, so it's 30 liters, so you've got like a lot of room in there, but it's very comfortable. You can like run in it. I use it for climbing. It's very sturdy, really
pockets.
Well built, but it's kind of like, I feel like there's a lot of year. It's kind of seems as though it's not been designed by someone who is an outdoors person, but this backpack's definitely like designed by someone who like appreciates a good backpack.
Yeah, because we've had some where like you put it on and like little bits get caught on each other, and it's like there's nowhere to put this in, and
the one you're using, right?
Yeah, and there's no pockets on it, and it's like there's nowhere to hang a water bladder, just little things that I'm like, how can it not have these functions?
So we get sent like some gear we test is like, like really, really good. And then other bits, it's like, I don't know how they're
designed this.
Yeah. And it's definitely not like, it doesn't, how much you pay is not always a sign of like how good it is. Because I won't like mention brands, but like this one backpack is like through the roof. The prices are like unbelievably expensive.
And it's pants.
But it's just, there's so many design flaws in it. Like it's a climbing and mountaineering backpack, but there's so many little things which get caught on each other, which like if you're on the side of a mountain could be incredibly dangerous. Yeah, and it's kind of like 3 times the price of the average backpack.
But yeah, your one doesn't have anything like that, so it's very comfortable. Even when you like ram it full, it's still very, very comfortable, which I find very important. So when you have to like try and cram everything in there, it can sometimes feel like you've got a bit of a tortoise shell on your back. But yeah, this one's really comfy. And
then I guess for bigger backpacks, there's do you know the brand Vaude?
I don't think so.
Vaude. So they're a German brand, but they're like massively leading the way with sustainable outdoors gear. Like really, really, really good with environmental initiatives, and kind of like they really know a lot to do with their supply chain, which like most companies, they couldn't tell you where most things were, designed.
Yeah, right.
These guys are really on the ball. So they've got loads of good backpacking packs, like a lot of their range. They've got some which is a bit more kind of like, I guess, like casual backpacking, but then they've got like a lightweight range, which is really, really good. And it's all like Blue Sign, like all the materials are Blue Sign approved, and they've got lots of environmental initiatives which they pay towards. So yeah, they're really good. I like Board.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. Yeah, because I think I lucked out. Yeah, because I feel like, you get like, you find one backpack and like it just, everything works for you and you're like, oh, it's amazing. And then like you use it for years and then it, kind of disintegrates over time. And then you're like, no. And then you can just like never find like another really good backpack. Yeah.
I think with actual backpacks, like obviously getting a good backpack is like really important, but I think it's like the packing of the backpack, which can be just as important, because you can have like a perfectly fitted backpack, and then if you pack it wrong, it's going to be just as uncomfortable as like the worst backpack. So I think it definitely takes like a while getting used to you know, like with the gear, like if you're doing like a multi-day trip, like the perfect way to like pack your gear into your bag so it's not like keeps you balanced and not kind of like throwing your shoulders off on one side or the other.
Right.
So speaking about camping and sort of like the idea of these like overnight trip, one of the things that Kaitlyn and I love doing is camping. But, you know, I think as humans, we tend to unfortunately leave footprints wherever we go. And so we were wondering, I guess, what advice you guys have in terms of minimizing the waste and impact or like, I guess, trace that you leave behind when you go travel, camp, hike somewhere.
So I think loads of it comes in like before you even get there, kind of the planning element I think is probably quite overlooked a lot of the time. But I think like no matter how careful you are, there's certain places where you probably shouldn't go, or you shouldn't go at certain times of the year, or like.
Yeah, so thinking if you're going to a very popular place at a popular time, it's going to be a lot more damaging.
Yeah, like places where they're already like really under strain, or you know, like there's some national parks where you just have like queues of people, trying to, and I think places like that, it's like obviously you want to see them, but you maybe pick better times of year to go.
Or somewhere else, you know, it may not have quite the same lure, but there are lots of beautiful places in the world that can be explored. Perhaps not as famous, but.
And then I guess getting there, like
transport,
like trying to, you know, if it's possible, like use public transport, or like if you are going, like if you've got like a group of you going, you know, go backpacking or going hiking, like carpool rather than all like driving individually, try and like drive together. And then I guess when you're there, like your food as well makes a huge.
Yeah.
If like you're hiking every day, like what you're eating and drinking, and like trying to.
That can be more tough, I think, sort of on the road over a long period of time. It can be quite difficult to always, because you can't make things all the time. You're going to have to buy things. And then also when it's like limited, what sort of things you can buy from shops. I think especially we found that being vegan, it's not always been very easy to buy things sort of on the roads.
Yeah, you kind of just like take what you're given.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else?
I think like gear can be a big thing as well, kind of stuff that will, like you said.
Actually, yeah, like in terms of like environmental footprint.
Yeah.
Like another thing is like the environmental or like the carbon footprint of clothes is like through the roof. Like it's you know, like I think it's like the textile industry is like the first or second biggest polluter in the world.
Yeah, more. Yeah.
So I think.
So if you're buying clothes that you're just going to be able to wear for like a few months and then you're going to have to throw them away and get new ones, sort of, it's better to invest a bit more and like have a rucksack that will last you some years rather than the strap will break and you'll just have to buy a new one. Like it is worth it.
Yeah, and also like opting for brands which are more sustainable. I think makes but that in itself is like is very hard to tell, because obviously like nowadays it's such a, having like the green stamp on things is so like financially beneficial to people that it's very hard to kind of work out like what is actually sustainable and what's just like completely greenwashed.
Yeah.
And I think that is interesting because it's like it is really hard to tell, because even like some of the biggest like brands where you they really have this kind of like eco-friendly image. A lot of the times it's just an image. It's just this thing where they where you actually like work out, like do a bit of research and stuff, and you realize that they, you know, all their stuff's made in the same factory as another brand. It's all it's just this kind of like mirage of greenness.
No, definitely. Yeah,
because it is, which is good, but also and muddies the waters a little bit, because it is kind of a trend these days to be like eco-friendly. And you know, for example, I was really shocked at Christmas time. There was or maybe a couple of places that were offering Christmas trees, like live Christmas trees, but they were potted. So like you rent the tree for Christmas and then you kind of return it, and it's like, oh, so we're not cutting down the tree. But then my sister, who like, she's an environmental engineer sort of, but she was saying that it's actually less sustainable to do it that way, because the potted trees require so much more water, and actually they don't really survive that well in the pots anyway. So they're probably actually killing more trees, or like they're killing more trees than you would think. And then they're using so much water for the care of the trees. And then like they're supposed to replant the trees, but the roots are cut anyway being in the pot. So they're probably not going to survive once you plant it. And so and my sister was like explaining all this stuff to me, and I was like, whoa, that's so crazy. So yeah, same thing I guess with the gear, and there's like layers upon layers of
the marketing
that kind of stuff.
like really pull the wool over your eyes. Like with something like that, exactly. It's kind of like, oh, it's green. It tells you it is, and you're like, oh, of course it must be. They're telling me it is.
Because so many things sound so good on paper. It's like spend $50 and we'll plant a tree, and it's like, like I think all these like tree replanting schemes is like, I think it's a good, it's a nice sounding.
It's a nice idea, but it doesn't. Then you're chopping down these trees that are hundreds of years old. You're like destroying this whole ecosystem, and then just think you're going to plant like a little seed. It's like it doesn't really compensate for like the hundreds of years it will take for that tree to regrow and that ecosystem.
Crazy like carbon offsetting schemes. We've had so many like debates with people about those. I'm sure there's some which I'm sure there are some very legitimate carbon offsetting schemes, but I think it's just kind of the wrong mentality of continuing the same behavior and trying to get something to kind of like compensate for that rather than actually changing the behavior. I think is like the key. Just like nip it in the bud. Yeah. Do less of it, and then.
Because that's the thing. I think people have become very comfortable and accustomed to the lives that they lead, and people don't want to change that. People don't want to change their behaviours and think what they're doing is wrong. But in essence, we could all do more. That's the whole point, that we could all do a bit more, but people don't like to admit that. So rather than changing that essential behaviour, it's like, well, I'll just do this to kind of compensate for that. But it doesn't work in practice. It's a flawed system, in my opinion.
No, you guys are right. And we did our last podcast episode, we were talking even about like plastic, and it's kind of the same thing with plastic and recycling.
Yes.
Because there's huge flaws with that system, and honestly, at the end of the day, like what we have to do is we just have to use less plastic, just like do less of the thing, altogether. No, we totally agree with that.
Supermarkets make it so hard though, because it really, particularly for things like like for backpacking, because it's like if you're doing kind of like resupplies on the trail, like you're like, obviously there will be places, if you're lucky. I mean, I don't know how it is with you guys, but like there's basically there's no way we could get kind of like waste, or I guess waste free is kind of like is probably quite unattainable, but like low waste, if we were just we were going past a town for like an hour, is like realistically you're just going to be able to get like probably the worst, like cheap plastic wraps, just kind of like imported, and that's all you can get. It makes it really difficult to be able to like I saw this thing of this girl, a video of her doing so she said it was zero waste, but it was just like a low waste backpacking trip, and just like the extra, like it was so many more steps and procedures, and kind of to the point where like your trip would be a lot less enjoyable. And then even then it's like it's almost impossible to do it.
I think that's the thing when you're traveling as well, when you're backpacking or sort of cycling, you can only take a very limited amount of things, so you have to constantly be stopping to resupply food, and that means that you're quite limited in what you can get. And I don't know what it's like where you two are, but here in the UK everything's wrapped in plastic. Everything, like individual peppers, aubergines and bananas, everything.
Well, that's the case in Korea too, and I've complained about it quite a bit. Like if you go, it depends where you go. Like if you go to like the traditional markets, then it's like everything is not wrapped, thank God. But like I said, there's no traditional markets that's near my house, and I usually do my grocery shopping after work. So I just go to the local store, and like everything's wrapped in plastic. Like an individual like thing is wrapped in plastic, and I kind of like I try not to get the plastic wrapped stuff as much as possible, but there's just so much of it. It's kind of like it's really unfortunate.
It's hard because like the vast majority of people are kind of not against environmentalism, but I think it's something that you need to make it easy for people if they're going to change their behaviors. So it's kind of like when you've got something which is more expensive, harder to do, it like the government, they don't make it easy for things. Hard to know what to do.
We have to try our best. That's it.
I think this is like one of the big things with us and like the outdoors, in that why we kind of created the website and stuff, and like why because I think the more time you spend outside, the more you realize the value of it. And I think that's one of like of it's kind of like, if you're sitting in a city and you never have any interactions with natural areas, you probably, and you're really far detached from places where they're like experiencing global warming, like what everywhere is experiencing, but like really detrimental effects of it. It kind of seems like this long, far away thing which isn't really affecting you.
Yeah, I think especially in the UK, you can become quite blind to it because it doesn't affect your everyday life. It's not something over the past 10 years, your life could be sort of pretty much the same. You've not realised at all that there's any problems. But I think when you travel, you really appreciate the beauty of the world, and it also really makes you realise sort of how far-reaching the effects of it are, and it really makes you feel sort of compelled, like you have to do something.
Like since I moved, and I've had friends like in a lot of different places too, and then even just hearing them talk about the weather and like how it's been different. Like in Canada, it seems like the seasons have kind of shifted by a month. Like winter starts and ends later, and summers have been really unpredictable. Like sometimes it's really hot and dry. Like last year was unusually hot and dry, and then like in Korea, I mean, usually it's humid, but it's pretty hot and sunny in the summer. But last year we had floods and like torrential rains, and it was like landslides and stuff. Yeah, it just rained all summer. I mean, we have a rainy season, but usually it's only like 2 or 3 weeks, but it was the whole summer, and it was really kind of strange. And then even this winter, like the temperatures have been like really up and down. And what's happening in the US right now too, they kind of had like the polar vortex apparently keeps like going south, and I think, yeah, you're right, like it's not until like you've been to these places and you have kind of an invested interest in these places that you sort of like keep tabs and realize like how the climate is changing. And even when you go to a place and you talk to the locals, like whenever I'm talking to like Korean friends and stuff, especially older Korean people, they always say like, oh, it used to be like this but not anymore, or like, winter used to have this but not these days. And I'm like, oh, it's really interesting. So yes, it is definitely like a climate crisis for sure everywhere. Okay, well, but that's kind of a downer, but
on a positive note.
Yeah, a positive note, a little bit of a happier question is, can you guys share some of your favorite like hikes, bike tours, and climbing spots? I mean, you mentioned a couple already, but I kind of want to hear like what makes them so special. And I know like on your website I saw that you mentioned like the hiking the Cambria Way, and then like biking the Rhona, and then climbing in like Fontainebleau.
Fontainebleau. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That was definitely a highlight for you.
Yeah. So the people call it Font, which is easier. And is it's just like if you're like a boulderer or any kind of climber, but like is all bouldering there. It's just like it makes you think. I think I said this before, but like it makes you think like if there was a god or someone who created the world, that they were a climber. Like this place is just like everywhere. It's just like, it's unbelievable that it's like naturally formed.
Yeah.
These kind of like elaborate, crazy like sandstone rock formations, but then all of the floor is sand as well. So it's kind of perfect. Obviously you've got like pads and matting and stuff, but it's just lay down your mat on this flat surface and just climb this boulder there on its own. Perfect.
Wow.
And it's like 60 kilometers. I've actually just like submitted like a freelance piece about Fontainebleau, so I've just been kind of like daydreaming about it all week. It's 60 kilometers out of Paris, and it's set in this big forest, and it's this really beautiful forest, like really kind of like sleepy with kind of like perfect like density of trees. So it's like cool and covered, but then you get these kind of like really magical like spurts of light which just shine through. And then the climbing there is just, so there's, I don't know how many routes, but there's over 200 different areas, and within each of the areas you've got
loads of routes.
Yeah, and like in maybe
varying levels as well.
Maybe in like 20 or 30 of the different areas you have like circuit, like, so it's almost like a gym. Like you actually have like circuits where they've kind of like put little markings on the rock, so you can follow the circuits around for like different levels. It's just like you could just spend a lifetime there basically. It's great.
Yeah, good for climbers.
I've watched a lot of YouTube videos of climbers climbing in Font, and it's just like one of those places that just sort of seems like the Disneyland for climbers.
Yeah. And I think it's cool as well because you like you get like families there, and you've got like kind of like super beginners, because it's such an accessible place. Like from the UK, you can just get a Euro. Well, I guess most people will fly, but like you can just get a Eurostar from London to Paris, and then you just jump on a bus and you can get into the forest. But then you've got all these beginners, and then you've got like literally like the best climbers in the world there as well, who will be kind of setting new routes and kind of like pushing for new grades, and very cool place.
Oh, cool. And then how about, because you mentioned that before too, your bike trip. How was the bike trip? You spent 13 months in France?
Yeah, so the plan was to cycle from the UK to India.
Well, the plan still is.
Yeah, but this just kind of put a bit of a like stopper to it. So yeah, that we were sort of 13 months into it. We just sort of we were actually just planning to leave when the virus just happened. We were planning to sort of start cycling again. I think in a month's time we were going to do it, cycling through sort of northern Italy.
And that was when northern Italy was like, like the epicenter, like really bad
of Europe. So we were like, maybe we won't be able to go to northern Italy. We were thinking, oh dear, this is really inconvenient.
We might have to go through Germany instead.
And little did we know, it just completely. We just came back here. We still plan to do it, hopefully, sort of when things open up again, but we're not really sure when that is at the moment.
But the cycling through France was awesome.
It's really good. France was quite geared up for sort of cyclists.
Yeah,
People were sort of very hospitable as well, sort of locals kind of see you with all your bags on your bike, but come and stay the night, come and have dinner. We're like, okay.
That's so sweet.
There seems to be I wouldn't say like respect, but there's like a real nice, they kind of see up the outdoors in like a nice way, and kind of, I feel like in the UK it's kind of like, it's not seen as like that much of a worthwhile thing, but there it's kind of like, if you said to people you're cycling through the country, they're like, oh, this is an incredible thing, this is like really, really good. So you met loads.
I think because they're quite proud, like they're quite patriotic, I'd say, the French.
Yeah.
They quite like, they were like, what do you think of France? They're like, oh, that's amazing, come in and tell us your stories. And
then once we got towards the Alps, I guess like there, so we through the winter we rented an apartment, and there. But there we weren't really cycling. I think we were quite glad to not be cycling, and we were just hiking and climbing, and just like the hiking through the French Alps, and I guess we're in like the Swiss Alps as well.
Yeah.
But, it's just of the places that we've been, I've never been somewhere which is so like epic. Like you have these crazy landscapes, which is filled with so many options, but that is also so accessible. Like it's very easy to get around, kind of so many options around you, which is.
Yeah, loads of marked trails that you can just pick somewhere and just go and hike.
Yeah, I guess it would always be kind of like it get to like Wednesday or Thursday and be like, right, well, open the map, like where are we going to go this weekend? And we kind of like, just plan these kind of big crazy hikes and camping trips.
That sounds magical.
Yeah. Ugh, I know, like I'm listening to all these stories and I'm just like, I want to go. Because like another thing that Sam and I were going to do, we were going to hike the El Camino.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and now I'm just like.
You're still planning on doing it?
At some point.
Yeah.
Whenever it's
knock
possible.
on wood.
Yeah.
I've only ever heard like incredible experiences from people doing that. They seem like my best friend is kind of like, I don't know, if you met him and you spoke to him for an hour, he will almost definitely talk to you about the Camino.
He's pretty up.
Yeah, he just loves it. But yeah, everyone we've spoken to have done like bits of it or all of it or like different sections of it. They're just just you can kind of see like a gleam in their face when like their eyes twinkle when you mention it.
Well, that's like really cool too. Like the twinkle, yeah, for sure. Like I miss traveling, and I miss like being able to kind of get out and have more freedom to move around,
when you, especially on longer trips, when you're kind of like where there's just nothing planned to the days, and I think this is one of the things we love about cycle touring is like you do have so much freedom. Like I think more than with hiking and stuff. Do you mean you can cover easily like 150 kilometers in a day, and like you can just go wherever you want. Like if you got a tent and you can like, and also like with the the hiking obviously is like harder to keep all your supplies with you,
Yeah.
and also to get places. Say somewhere's like 100 miles away, with the closest place to get supplies, it's like that's a long way to hike.
Yeah.
But like if you got a bike, it means you're a lot easier connected to be able to get food and supplies. So you can just such like a feeling of freedom.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, well, we've just got like until we run out of money, basically. We just keep cycling.
And you get into this kind of like cycle of just like being outside kind of like all day. You kind of like eat every meal outside, and like you get quite smelly and like quite dirty, but you don't really mind. Embrace it. Yeah, I
just
really
like
like it.
track your food, like the days of your food through like your sleeve, like, oh yeah, that was from like lunch a couple of days ago. Yeah. And also like through France, like these epic cycling lunches where we just as soon as we saw a supermarket, we like just fill up like a baguette with like 5 different like pots of salads and kind of just like everything.
Because when you're exercising all day, you just get so hungry. We're burning so much energy. We just eat so much. It's amazing. We just sit there for like an hour, just like we'd start off like buying 1 baguette, and then it got to the point where if we need 2, and then it was like verging on like
can we get 3?
Yeah.
I really like that idea though, just like pouring a salad into a baguette. Like
it's like a cheap plate. Do you know what I mean? You just slice it and then
sounds like a very efficient way to eat.
What else were we chucking in it? Salad.
Like nuts, crisps. We get like tins of pulses and put them in it as well. Just anything.
Yeah, like if we ever like found falafel, we were like, oh, we found falafel.
Oh man, what a good combination.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on today and talking to us about your eco-friendly adventures. I know it was certainly eye-opening for me and hopefully for our listeners as well. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been really fun.
It's almost like a little adventure fix, as we're not able to do it. Nice to talk about it.
Yeah, it is good to get together, I think, and think about the past and the future. Hopefully, hopefully. All right. So, but if the people listening to the podcast want to follow along with your adventures online, where can they reach you or get more information about your message and even like access to your reviews and stuff?
So it's all on veggieVagabonds.com, which is kind of like we do stuff on social media, but it's kind of, I think we kind of pour most of the stuff onto the website.
Yeah, we're also on Twitter, Facebook,
so it's
Instagram.
all kind of just like at Veggie Vagabonds. But like the blog is where we've got like all the gear reviews, like our trips, like lots of, I think we want to create all the resources people would need to get outside more and then do it in like an ethical way, like a more ethical way, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll definitely really cool. Put all of those links in the description for anyone looking for them.
Awesome.
So thank you again. We will be following your adventures virtually and vicariously. And hopefully one day in the future we'll be able to meet up in the same country.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
I mean, we've got like, I mean, I got a major, I would love to live in America basically. Well, I'd love to live either somewhere in North America, maybe America or Canada. We'll go for a hike.
Yes,
oh my God,
definitely.
Let's. Thank you so much again. And everyone who's listening, catch you next time on our podcast.
Cool. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
That's it for today, folks.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
And as always, please support this work by subscribing and donating to our cause at www.teamgetoveryit.com.
Donors get access to specific content like stickers, t-shirts, and postcards from our journey.
You can donate for as little as $5 and the benefits build from there.
Go to our website for more information.
Or find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Team Get Over It.
Thanks for listening.
And catch us next time on Get Over It.